Hey third grade friends, it's Mrs. Herbay here. I hope you had a really fun time drawing your silhouettes last week and looking at your shadow. And this week it's Nature Week. And so hopefully you'll get a chance to get outside and check out some nature things. If you watch my video, I encourage you to kind of collect some nature things and see what you can make from those things that you collect in nature. And another thing that we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about drawing a bug jar. And when I was a kid, my brothers and I, we would spend many hours outside, and we'd like to kind of try to collect bugs or kind of put bugs in a jar and pretend like they were our pets. And we would put things inside that we thought that the bugs would like grass or sticks or some dirt and rocks and things like that. And it never really seemed to work out very well, but it was fun to do. And so I thought it might be fun if you guys kind of created your own bug jars, but these won't be live bug jars, although you could try to do it. This is going to be kind of you're going to draw a bug jar just on paper. So what you're going to need today is you're going to need to print out this how to draw, and it's 2 pages. It has 8 steps to it. And also you could have your parents print out this idea sheet, and it's an idea sheet that has all different kinds of bugs, and the top part has more bugs drawn in more of a fun cartoon style, and there may be a little bit more like the style of the bugs that Yuval Zomer draws that I showed you in the PowerPoint. If you guys watched the PowerPoint about his fun and easy way to draw bugs. And then down below, there's a little bit more of a scientific or realistic, some renderings of bugs. And then I just included a few little nature things down here. But again, you probably may even have more ideas of things that you may want to use. And you may not even need to use this worksheet, but it's just there as a resource because I can't be there with you. So to get started, we will start to draw the bug jar, and we will start following the steps. And I will go through the steps with you step by step. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so for step 1, we are going to figure out how big we want to make the jar. And we will start at the bottom of our paper, and we are going to make sort of this, it's almost like a really thin football shape. And here's a trick that I like to do. I like to come in a little bit from the edge, and I'm just going to put a small little dot there. That kind of tells me I want to start here, and then I'm going to come in from about the same distance. I'm going to put another little dot there. So that's going to tell me I'm going to be swinging my lines from here to here and there to there. Sometimes it helps to have sort of a roadmap of where you're going. And then we're also, maybe somewhere in the middle, we're going to put a dot here and then directly below a dot here. And what these dots do is they're kind of giving me a guide for about how high up I want that line to go and about how far down I want that line to go. And if you can before you draw it, if you just even want to kind of sort of play around with it with your hand and just kind of do it lightly in the air before you actually do it with your pencil. So once I've kind of played around with it and just relaxed, then I'm just going to lightly kind of sketch it. So I'm going to go from there to there, and then I'm going to start here to there, and there's my line. Now, it's okay if you don't quite hit the dot. It's just kind of giving you sort of a framework. And maybe if I wanted it to go a little bit further down, I can adjust it by just kind of erasing that. And maybe I'll just move it down just a little bit. It'll go like that. The nice thing is if you just do it nice and lightly, you'll be able to make the adjustments that you need. So there's step 1. And now we are ready to go on to step 2. So I'm going to move my paper over so I can see step 2. Now for step 2, what we're going to do is we're going to be drawing 2 vertical lines Here I have a couple pieces of paper here, I only need one. What you're going to do is we're going to draw 2 vertical lines that go up, and not as high as the paper because we have to leave room for the top of the jar, but we're going to go up nearly to the top. So if you wanted a shorter, wider jar, then you wouldn't go up quite as high, but I think I like the idea of it being taller and thinner. So same thing, I'm going to put kind of a mark up right around where about as high as I want to go. And then I'm going to kind of go over, same thing, kind of going to go over and then put another light dot there. So I kind of see, okay, I want to go up that high. And you want the line to try to be relatively straight. And you might say, well, how do I do that, Mrs. Herbay, without a ruler? Well, if you look at how far apart this dot is from the edge of the paper, I'm just going to try to keep that line about the same distance. And you'll know that it's not straight if your line is getting closer, and now you can see, oh, it's going off that way because the space from here to the edge is a lot smaller than it is down here. So that tells me, oops, right around here, I started to get off track. And sometimes what I like to do is when I get off track or it's not exactly how I want it, don't erase it, just leave it. And then what it does is it helps you to see. And then once I have it the way I want it, then I can erase the line that I didn't like before. So there is, I'm going up to there, and then I'm going to also do the same over here. And same thing, I'm going to try to keep it the same distance from here to the edge and working my way up. So again, I'm just going to, and same thing, sometimes people go in this way and you can see, ooh, the space between here and the edge is way bigger than it is down here. So again, I'm just going to leave that line to show you guys, because then that kind of tells me, hey, you came in too far. And then I'm sketching up about to that dot. And I can kind of see that's about the same. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to erase that line. So now I am at the top. So step 2 is done. Now I'm going to come down and I'm going to look at step 3. So I'm going to move this up a little bit. And there's 2 things that happen in step 3. First of all, there is this curve that kind of comes in a little bit like this, and this kind of curves in like this. And this is where the jar is narrowing up at the top. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. So I'm going to kind of draw that curve and go up like that. And depending on, you may want it to be, it can be more curved like that if you want to. So you decide on kind of how the angle of that curve. And then the tricky part is kind of trying to mimic it on the other side. So I'm kind of going to go across and say, all right, this is how far, and then I'm kind of coming in and then up. Kind of like that. And then I'm looking to see, oh, are these the same? And maybe this one could be a little bit more, a little bit gradual. So I'm going to kind of fuss around with that. And then once it is how I like it, actually I might just come out. One more, actually, here. Oops. There we go. And see how it just took me a little bit, I was fussing with it, and now I kind of have it how I like it. So that's this part right here. And then the last part is we're going to kind of draw, see how we have this curve line here? It's going to be the same curve, but it's going to extend a little bit from the edges. That's going to be the lid of the jar. So what we're going to do is we are going to start a little bit out from the edge here. I'm going to kind of go down. And then I'm going back up. And I probably came out too far, but at least it kind of got me with my curve. So I'll just erase a little bit of that there and a little bit there. So there is my curve. going like that. So it's just a slight curve. And then that completes step 3. Now I'm going to go on to step 4. So step 4 says, oops, now I'm going to come up to the side here with this lid with sort of 2 vertical lines. So you're going to decide how high the lid will be. And I'm going to go maybe up about that high, all right? And then step 4 is done. So now I'm ready to go to the next page. Now, the next step for step 5 is, now I'm drawing another curve, and it's the same curve as this curve right here. So what you're going to do is you're just going to, and I might have gone up a little too high. My jar's gonna almost go off my paper, so I'm gonna lower that down just a little bit. So now that same curve, and so you know how I talked about keeping the distance from the edge of this line to the edge of the paper? The way you also want to make sure is you'll keep the same distance from here to here, here to here. And so you're just kind of drawing, you're mimicking that line just a little bit higher up, right? And there is the lid, sort of the rim of part of the lid of the jar. Then I'm going to go on to step 6. And step 6 has where I'm going to then do the top part of the lid. And that's going to be the top, same curve as this oval shape down here. So same thing, I'm just going to then curve around, and you could, if you wanted to, put a little dot for about how high up that you want to go. And then you're curving back down, and you're just kind of gonna maybe round that out a little bit. And there is my lid. If you think that it's hanging a little bit too far over on one side, like if I thought, oh, that maybe looks like it's sticking out too far, I can adjust it. It's not a big deal. And so what I would do is just, because I drew nice and lightly, it's okay. And then same thing, I'll put my dot about right there. And I'm going to make my curve kind of come down like that. So there is my lid. And the next step is now I'm going to head down to step 7. And for step 7, I'm just going to be drawing a line on the inside. It's really the same exact shape, and I'm going to try to keep the distance the same from here to here as it is from here to here and on the edges. So what I'll do is I'll just start here, and I'm just sketching lightly. And then when I get down here, I'm just sketching around like that. So there's that part of the lid. And then another thing I can do is as I come down here, if this seems, now I can kind of erase those little dots, and I can kind of round out this edge a little bit more. Instead of it being pointy, it's just easier, I find, to get started with it like that. So I kind of just rounded that a little bit. And then same over here. I'm just going to round that out a little bit. Just making little adjustments. And the nice thing is that I can do that because I drew nice and lightly. So then for the final step, for step 8, we are just going to add a few more line details to this jar. It's kind of like a one of those mason jars that you screw off. I don't know if you guys are familiar with those, but what I'm going to do is I'm I'm just going to kind of put a line up here, and then there was a line kind of going around in here a little bit, and then I have some lines. These lines are following the same curve that I drew before, and these just help it to look a little bit more realistic. So these lines are just kind of curving around, and then I had some vertical lines coming, oops, and I just had some vertical lines coming down here to make the lid seem like it had texture. So voila, there is a jar in that hopefully you feel like looks 3D. It looks like we could actually put something in there. All right, now here comes the fun part where we're going to fill this jar with some bugs. What I would probably do first is, if you happen to have, if you don't have a pen, any other like crayons or colored pencils or markers, one thing that you could do is, I bet your parents maybe have like a ballpoint pen, and you could use like a ballpoint pen to outline the outer edge and the outer details of your jar. I happen to have this marker here, and so what I'm going to do is, before I start to work on my bugs, I'm going to just outline my lines carefully with my marker, because then that way when I start to draw my bugs, I won't. And one thing I always tell you guys, move your paper around so that when you're tracing over your pencil lines, it makes it easy to go over your lines. There we go. And then I'm just going to go like this. I'm going to draw. You just kind of let your hand slide. Sometimes it works really easily. Just want to be relaxed. And then here's my curved line there. My curved line there. I'm going to put my side ones. 1, 2. And then I'm going to curve out and around there. And if you happen to have a thinner marker, or even just like a lighter pencil, then I'm just going to make these inner lines a little bit thinner. There's that, and then I'm just going to do this one comes around here, and then we got our all right. Now we are ready to start thinking about our bug's habitat. So you can draw some nature items first and then draw your bugs, or you can draw the bugs and then draw the nature items. It's totally up to you. So to start with, we could think about our little tip from Yuval Zomer, and that was that he said either to draw like half circles, right? And he also talked about drawing like an almond shape, which was like, I think like that. And then he also talked about drawing sort of like a shape like that, where it was actually rounded, but then a little wider at the end like that. All right, so there's a couple shapes just to get me started. And then he talked about adding a head and I'm going to add a head, and then he talked about adding eyes. Erase in there. And mouths. And he talked about antenna. And I don't know if you guys remember that bugs have 6 legs. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or insects have 6 legs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He talked about wings and how the wings are really see-through-y, and sometimes you can draw like the sort of like those little veins that you see in the wings. Maybe that wing kind of square instead of round. And this guy isn't going to have any wings. And then the last thing he talked about was adding decorations to our bugs. Maybe this bug is hairy. So those are some fun ideas on how to draw bugs. So you can do it kind of in his style. You could also try one of these styles if you wanted to. Like maybe I want to have like a butterfly. So if I look here, I'm just going to draw. Okay, I see a circle. Then there's another sort of oval. And then shape like that. And then wings. I'm just going to kind of come out and around. And sometimes for butterfly wings, you could even bring it back like that. And then you can go down. And you can use these drawings as inspiration, but you don't have to do it exactly. Like I'm kind of using it sort of as an idea, but I'm not completely copying it. And then maybe I'm going to outline around like that. Maybe down here, this bug looks kind of interesting. So it's kind of like that almond shape like he was talking about. And then up towards the top here, there's kind of a head, and there's sort of a line here. You got the triangle. And you can just kind of have some fun. And this guy is kind of crawling around on the bottom of the jar. And you get the idea. But I want you to have fun. Draw a bunch of different bugs and different things. You could even have a story going on here. Maybe if you did it more like a cartoon, he's saying, hey, how do we get out of here? Haha. And once you have all your bugs drawn, you can even do more bugs than this, but then you can use either some of my things as inspiration, or you can go ahead, like maybe you want to draw a stick that's inside the jar. And then maybe could be a leaf that the bug is hanging out on. Could do that. Maybe there's a feather inside that you found. So I'm going to draw like the main part of the feather, and then feathers kind of have this feather, and maybe there's some rocks in the bottom of the jar for the bugs to crawl around on. Maybe, what else? Maybe we put some grass. So I'm just going to draw some blades of grass. Maybe there's another random stick. That's in there. So you get the idea. So once you have drawn all of the bugs and all of the nature items inside of your jar, then if you don't have things to color, no worries. You can use your pencil and you can go back and you can kind of color in some of what you drew with dark and light values. Or if you do happen to have, I think in this case I would probably use like colored pencils or crayons. You can use markers as well, but the cool thing about like the crayons or the colored pencils is this. So once you grab, so for example, you could go, oops, that's not the color I was looking for. Here we go. So I'm going to go back, and if you happen to have like a thin black marker, you can outline your pencil lines. A lot of times it makes it look a little more detailed, but you can also use your colored pencil and you can sort of, for part of it, you can use a darker value, and then maybe for this part, I'm outlining it, but then I'm coloring in with a lighter value to give it a little bit more interest. And you can go ahead and then color all of your, I'll show you kind of, if you were using crayon, same thing, you could outline with your crayon, and then you can fill in. I'm not pressing very hard for that. And then maybe for this part, I do want to have like a dark value here. I sure miss our crayon sharpeners from school. It's a lot easier to draw with crayons when the tip of the crayon is a little bit pointier. But you can go ahead and color the bugs in. You can think about the lid of your jar, and maybe you want to color that in. Maybe it has a color and it's not sort of just this sort of gray color, but maybe you want it to be colorful. It's totally up to you. And then you can also, when you're all finished, if you kind of want to make it look like it's a little bit glassy, what I sometimes like to do is to take, you could take like a light blue or sort of a gray, and I'm just kind of putting a light coloring over top of everything, and it kind of gives you the idea that there's glass there. So it's really kind of cool. And there you have it. So I hope you have fun. I hope your bug jar kind of tells a little story inside. And I look forward to seeing your artwork, and I hope to talk to you guys soon.